As retired and active police officers, we all know that you can buy gear from a lot of different places, especially online. But I want to remind you of the importance of supporting companies that support law enforcement. I don't know of any company that fits that bill more than Goals. At Goals.com, their motto is proud to serve those who serve, which they do every single day. And they walk the talk by supporting dozens of focused organizations like Gold Shields. So when you're looking for gear, support our premier sponsor and go to goals.com. And for our loyal listeners to this show, use the code GOLD15 for 15% off your next purchase until October 31st. Go to goals.com today.
Welcome to Gold Shields. Join NYPD veterans Tom Smith and Dan Murphy. With over 50 years of combined experience chasing drug lords, dismantling cartels, and hunting terrorists. Now they pull back the curtain, sharing raw, unfiltered stories from the front lines and the heroes who stood beside them. No topics off limits. This is real. This is true crime. This is Gold Shields.
Hey, welcome back to Gold Shields. This is Dan Murphy, along with my partner in crime, Tom Smith. How are you today, buddy?
It's good, Dan. Everything's going well. Summer's over, which sucks, but, you know, what do? We say that all the time, depending on the season that me and you are doing these. It's either good that it's hot or bad that it's cold.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. You got the playoffs, you got baseball still on. The best part of baseball is coming up, and football's out there, and I'm not up north anymore, which is really, really good. So I'm okay with that.
Fuck, who cares? Quiet.
Dig it. Yeah, just a little dig. I couldn't help it.
Yeah,
but,
I'm not talking to you from January to like March.
Yeah, but I'm going to send you pictures.
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
I'm going to send you pictures just to give you a hard time.
Of course you will.
Yeah. So today we're very, very blessed to have two guests today. We're gonna talk about a tough subject, and we don't shy away from them here on Gold Shields. We talk about wellness in the law enforcement community and in military too, and it's a critical problem. And we have two gentlemen on today who are going to discuss that with some very personal impact it's had on them. Tom, who do we have today? Who are our guests? And we're excited to get a chance to talk more and share what people need to hear. They need to hear about this problem that's going on.
Yeah, problem is right. And you know what? We're once again blessed to have relationships with these two people, that are on the show today, because they understand our feeling about this subject of law enforcement suicides, because we've said it 1,000 times that the numbers are just too much, too high, too many, over and over and over again. And this is an opportunity to get a firsthand look into what this is all about. Brian Sizemore and Jared Murphy are with us today to talk about Lucas Sizemore, Brian's son, and the Lucas Crusade, which, if there's an organization out there, this is, my God, how important this is. And we're going to get into it and why and the hows and all that. But gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us and giving us the honor to speak to you tonight. Brian and Jared, welcome to Gold Shields.
Thank you, guys. The honor's ours. Believe us.
Well, thank you. So you two guys, how long do you know each other? Is this something that you're doing? Lucas's Crusade how long has it been in effect? And then we'll get back to the backstory. We're just curious how long you guys have been together in this effort.
Jared and I have personally known each other for about a year now, right?
Yeah. Not as long
A little more than a year. Yep.
but my story with Lucas and predates Brian. So our families, I suppose, have known one another for 4 years or so.
So, Lucas, why don't we just jump into Brian, your son, Lucas?
Sure.
Tell us about Lucas.
Well, it's like when he was young, or okay, yeah. Normal everyday American kid. He grew up in suburb of Detroit. Modest middle class home. Me and his mom, my wife Marie, both have good jobs. I work for AT&T. She's a school teacher here local. So Lucas grew up in a stable home, and he's got a younger brother, and he did everything that young men do. They, when they're growing up, they're active, they're troublemakers sometimes. They do what, like I said, they do what young boys do. As he got older, he was into some sports. He became an avid deer hunter with me. He would go with me like almost every time that I went. He graduated high school, went to Eastern Michigan University, and that's where his uncle was. I never remember if his uncle was still active or retired, but his uncle Paul was a agent with HSI. Got him an internship while he was at Eastern, and that's when my wife and I really, once he started that internship, we really could see the enthusiasm and the bug had took hold, and he was already taking criminal justice classes, and his path was going that way. But when he started to do that stuff, you could really see the excitement. So we knew somewhere, some agency, some department, what part of the country, we didn't know, but we could tell he was going to be in law enforcement somewhere.
And you know what? I have a feeling you were pretty proud about that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The feeling of wanting to get into this profession is a calling. It's not, hey, let me go get a job. It's something you have to feel, you have to love, and you have to desire because you have an understanding of what it's about. And he certainly had that. And then going into the intern world, from college and everything is a big step. I think, Jared, that's where kind of you came into the family, right?
Yeah. Lucas was an intern with our office in Detroit in 2021, and great young man. Everybody likes interns because they're eager and they're curious and they're youthful, and he was especially liked just because he had a kind of a funny sense of humor, and just was really eager. You could tell that he had a passion for it and wanted to become a federal agent.
Okay, so next steps from there. He goes through his internships. Where does he land?
He, I think in his heart wanted to stay federal. At the time, the only federal law enforcement agency he could join with no prior law enforcement experience was the Border Patrol. And his heart just wasn't in that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. He wasn't ready for that. So he started applying locally. He applied to some smaller departments here in the Detroit area and didn't get any takers. And then I've got a lot of law enforcement in my family. Some even chiefs of police, uncles, you name it. So one of the family members took him aside and told him and said, "Hey, we'll get you a job local here right now if you want. But, there's 15 officers in the department. You're going to drive a mile and a half that way and write a ticket, and then you're going to go a mile and a half the other way and write a ticket. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you want to do that, by this point, he's already graduated Eastern Michigan. He would have to go through the state of Michigan's law enforcement certification programs. But he would have got hired, and he wanted to do the type of stuff that he did when he was an intern. He wanted to serve warrants. He wanted to go on, he was always behind Jared and the rest of the agents, but he would go and watch these guys, kick doors in, and he was the last guy through the door, but he got to see all of that, and that's what he wanted. So the advice that he got was to apply to big cities. If you want to do, you guys hear the commercials, you want to do big boy stuff, you got to go to a big boy city. So he I don't remember him applying to Detroit, and I don't remember him applying anywhere along the East Coast, but in West Coast neither. Mostly Texas, southern area, Florida. I know he applied. So he applied to Atlanta, and it was really quick. I want to say a couple of weeks after he applied, he did some stuff online. They sent him a packet that he had to fill out, and within 2 weeks of that, he was in Atlanta doing a bunch of testing and physicals and their vetting and all of that. He was down there for almost a week doing that. And then after he made it through all of that, they sent him a job offer.
Process is a little bit different than when Tom and I went through it, that's for sure. I'm not sure, Jared, what your experience was, but it wasn't exactly that quick. But so it's funny you mentioned he wanted to do the big boy stuff, and most of the best cops want to do the work. They really come on the job to be busy, to feel the adrenaline rush, to get challenged every day, to grow, to learn, to make an impact, to knock doors down, to lock people up, to confront serious crime and learn how to be victorious against it as a police officer and stay safe and make a case. It sounds like he had that. I think the old school term would be piss and vinegar. But he had it in his veins, and that's the best cops, the best law enforcement agents have that. They have that desire to get the bad guy. And it sounds like that's what he was all about.
That's awesome.
So he goes to Atlanta and he starts. Tell us about that. Now you're in Detroit area, and he's down in Atlanta.
Yep, we're just south of Detroit. We're like almost halfway between the city of Detroit and the northern border of Ohio. But anyway, he starts his academy training, and the Atlanta Police Foundation, I believe it is. I want to say the Police Foundation may have paid for all of that themselves. Built it's either a 4 or 5 story apartment building specifically for the police recruits, and it's brand new facility. His apartment, he had one roommate. They each had a bedroom that locked. They each had their own bathroom that locked. Washer and dryer in the unit. Small living room area with a TV. It came fully furnished. Full kitchen. So, and it was cheap. It was like $275, $300 a month, and that was with the utilities. I think he had to pay for his own internet. It was really cheap. Nice place, good facility. So I had to drive him down there, move him in there, and so he started his academy training, and that was 5 days a week. They gave him the weekends off. Occasionally, if there were events and stuff going on in town, they would use those guys for backup, directing traffic and parking and that type of stuff. They also have the recruit. Every recruit has some type of job function, whether it's gassing up patrol cars or working at the academy or in the stables. Lucas actually got assigned to the chief's office. There was him and I want to say 2 other recruits. They sat in these little cubicles out in the front entrance part of the chief's office, answered the phones and ran for lunch and just did busy work, errands and stuff like that. But that put him in the position that, and this will come up later, is the chief knew him. The chief saw him, walk past him every day, knew his name. Not that they spoke or were best buddies or anything, but they still had a somewhat of a relationship because he worked in his office.
That doesn't hurt.
No, it didn't hurt. You're right. It didn't hurt.
That's never a bad thing. So, Jared, let me ask you. He now, someone who you saw as like you said, full of it, loves it, involved in it. Now you see kind of you helping this young man along and now he's got a job. Now he's in an academy. Now he's doing what you and probably him talked about, what he always wanted to do. So are you kind of following this as well and keeping tabs on him a little?
The truth of the matter, Tom, is the answer is no. So I interacted with him when he was an intern and knew of him. Interacted. He came into my office. I chatted with him. I think I saw him on some operational stuff. But the sad story is I didn't re-encounter Lucas until we helped bring his body back from Atlanta. So I don't want to go too deep into that story. Maybe we should let Brian develop it, but I can kind of reintroduce that as we go on. But that's part of the story that I regret. There's this gap in time of over a year where I had lost touch, and so it's not a happy story. It's not a proud story for me.
Brian, if you could tell us about what you knew about Lucas's career and his time with the Atlanta Police Department.
So fortunate for me, him and I, when he graduated, I don't know how it works in other states, but in Atlanta or in the state of Georgia, he does all the classroom work. They swear him in as a police officer, issue him everything, and then he goes on the road with the training officer. But he's a full police officer at that point. He's just still in training, I guess. Once he completed that, Atlanta does not. They do not ride with partners. They ride by themselves. So he was out there on his own. But what I was going to tell you is that we're fortunate that him and I worked opposite shifts. So when I was going into work, he was coming home and vice versa. So I talked to him every day, at least once, if not twice, because that was our routine. Like I was in my truck driving home from work. He was on his way in. So that was our opportunity to talk. So I heard all the stories. I heard the funny ones. I heard the sad ones, probably some he shouldn't have told me, but, he was doing well. He had made some arrests, a lot of traffic stuff, but he was involved in a scenario where he found a bomb by a grocery store that it almost sounded like sheer luck that he stumbled across this thing, but he ended up finding it. I heard the stories about, shame on me, but I purchased a police scanner app and put it on my phone, and he was mad. He was mad that I did that, but so I would listen, and so yeah, you can tune right into APD's frequency. So on that frequency was APD, some railroad, the medical system, their ambulances, Georgia Tech University police, and I think that was it. But amongst all that chatter, every time I heard, your child, as soon as I heard his voice, I knew it was him. And so then I start to pick up on some of the codes and the lingo. I kind of know what's going on, but not really. But I really did pick up on the street names. So, they don't call them precincts in Atlanta. They call them zones. And he was in zone 4, and I would constantly hear the name of this street. And then when I would talk to him on the phone, I'm like, hey, what's up with this street? He said, oh, it's not a nice neighborhood over there. There's a lot of crime, and there's a lot of homeless people. And he would tell me stories about, again, he's a rookie police officer, and, there would be a shooting or a homicide, and they would have to, secure the perimeter around apartment building or something like that. And to the kids that he would, I could tell that he hadn't lost that human side, because anything that involved a child really bothered him. And I could tell when I talked to him, but he was dumbfounded how normal it was to some of the neighborhood kids that, there's a homicide next door or in the apartment next door. And it was like, it didn't faze them like it would if that happened in our neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we've been involved in that, but I just want to put your mind at ease about something a little bit. In 1990, if there were scanners available, my dad would have had one attached to his head.
Right.
Well, with
So-
with no question, and that Danny knew my dad. He's a retired NYPD detective. If that was at his disposal, that
Yes.
thing would have been next to him like a breathing device.
And I told him, he would get upset when I first told him that I was listening to it, and he said something like that, and kind of along the same lines, I told him, I said, okay, smart ass, 30 years from now, when it's your son who's on a police force somewhere, you come and say something to me then. And then he never said a word about it again.
Which precinct did your father work in?
God, he started in 1950 in the 3-4, then worked in plain clothes, and then narcotics, and then the bulk of his time was in the Bronx in the 4-4, Bronx homicide, which wasn't even Bronx homicide yet. And then the DA's office is where he retired from in 1976. No, he was in the 4-1. He was in the Fort Apache as well. The 4-4 is covers Yankee Stadium. But he was in Fort Apache when all the events of the movie took place. He was there. So up in the squad as a detective. So I got all those stories.
So if we may continue, he's doing his time in the Atlanta Police Department, and something changes. Did you know something changed, or
Nope. We did. No, we so I'm assuming you've seen pictures of him, and that the picture that it's out there the most is the one where he's in uniform, and that picture was taken right before his graduation. They were in an auditorium, and we were outside still, and he called and said, hey, they're giving us a few minutes. I come outside, take some pictures. So he came outside, and the way he looks with that big cheesy smile is the way that kid looked all the time. He was always happy. He always was joking around. He would always, he would walk in a room and lit up the room. So at no point did we ever have any indication, excuse me, that there was anything bothering him or that he was upset about anything. I know he was I think he was over adjusting to the sleep patterns because he chose evening watch, and he wasn't used to working luckily they didn't have to work a swing shift. He got the evening watch. He stayed on the evening watch, and I told him how to adjust his sleep patterns, and I think he was coming out of that. But he was, I could tell he was tired when he first started working that shift, but he seemed fine. No indication of anything. And even after his passing, APD had all his electronics, his phone, his laptop, his iPad, went through, scrubbed everything, emails, texts, everything. And then when we got it all back, I did the same thing, stupidly thinking I would find something that they didn't, but nothing, not a peep. All of his friends down there, his classmates, his coworkers, not a peep.
So I want to ask you, Brian, about January 9th, 2024, because I think it's important for everyone to hear this and not to relive bad memories or be morbid in any way about it, but respectful, because I think it's important that people hear your story about that day and what happened in your reactions and everything else. So if he can take us through that day.
I was already at work. it was it was probably Evan started calling my phone. Now, exactly what time he called initially, I'm not sure. Like I said, I work for AT&T. I start real early in the morning. I got an easy routine. I walk into the building. I walk past this desk. I set my stuff down on this desk, and I go out into the main warehouse part of the building and start opening stuff and turning lights on, that kind of stuff. And my one coworker that was always there with me in the morning early comes running to me with my phone. Now, at the time, Evan played college football, so the fact that he was calling me wasn't abnormal because they practiced at 6. So, and this was when I saw that phone call was at 5:04 a.m. I do remember that one. My coworker hands me my phone. She said, "Evan's blowing your phone up," and I'm thinking like, okay, something's wrong with his car, or something silly like that. It wasn't out of the ordinary for him to call me that early. So I answered the phone, and I could tell he was upset, and he says to me, "Dad, sit down." And I said, "Evan, what are you talking about?" He said, "Dad, you need to sit down." And I said, "Evan, just fucking tell me. Sorry." And he said, Luke's dead. And so this next part, I say this every time, is like, I think my brain just went to what I wanted to hear, which is he accidentally shot himself. But I think Evan, I've never asked him. I think Evan just came right out and told me that he shot himself. In either case, my coworker could tell immediately that something was wrong. I told Evan, "Stop everything you're doing and get your butt home." He was about an hour away, 45, 50 minutes from home. So I immediately get in my truck, and I'm about 40 minutes from my house. That's where I work. So I start driving home. I call Marie, and she already knew. Evan had already talked to her. I'm guessing he called her because he couldn't get a hold of me. Called her, and she was like incoherent. Just it's hard to describe. It's awful to hear that from a mother. So I told her I'm on my way home, and I'm driving home, and I'm doing all the things AT&T preaches to us not to do. It's too early in the morning to call anybody, but I'm looking on my phone for a flight. I'm trying to figure out how fast I can get to Atlanta. And by the time I got home, I had realized that I wasn't going to get a flight out of Detroit until like almost 1:00. So I had already decided that I was driving. I'm dressed. I grab a bag, be out of the house in 10 minutes. So I walked in the house, and Marie was, I guarantee you, she was still standing in the exact same spot that I had spoke to her 35 minutes earlier. And she was the same way. She was just, it looked like she was melting. She was just standing there, couldn't breathe, couldn't talk. And I told her, I said, I'm leaving. I'm going to Atlanta to get him. And she said, she says, I can't. Well, her mom lives with us, so it wasn't going to be easy for her to go anyway. But she said, I can't go see him like that. I can't go down there. I said, okay, I'm not waiting for family. I'm not waiting for uncles or brothers or my dad, nobody. I'm leaving right now, because I wanted to get there. I wanted to get there as fast as I could. So by 10 after 6, I was on I-75 heading south. to Atlanta.
Looking for powerful defense without the mess? Meet Impact, a revolutionary line of chemical irritants designed for law enforcement, military, and personal protection. With no blowback, no cross-contamination, and easy cleanup, Carry Impact delivers unmatched stopping power without the hassle. Whether you're in the field or on the street, safety should never be compromised. Protect yourself with the next generation of defense. Carry Impact, stopping power redefined. Have you ever wished you could go back in time and see the events that shape the true crime cases that fascinate you? With newspapers.com, it's like having a time machine to the past. Dive into more than 1 billion newspaper pages from 1690 to 2025 and relive the headlines that shocked entire towns. Explore newspapers from the US, UK, Canada, Australia, and beyond with a simple search. Read the breaking news as it happened, crime scene reports, witness testimonies, and courtroom drama. Explore forgotten clues and see how the media shaped the narrative of infamous cases. But it's not just the major stories. Newspapers.com lets you dig into local mysteries, missing persons reports, and the small-town scandals that history forgot. It's the closest you can get to being there when it all unfolded. So, if you're ready to dig deeper into the crimes that keep you up at night, start your journey today at newspapers.com. Use the code GOLDSHIELDS for an exclusive 20% discount on your subscription.
That's a long ride.
11
That's
hours.
a lot of time.
It's 11 hours. And I can tell what you're thinking. Yes, every emotion and every thought and all of that. That's a long time to, in hindsight, maybe it would have been better if I had someone with me, but then I don't know. I don't know that either. I went down there and I don't know if anyone would have been able to help with anything. I did what we had to do to get him home, and it's just the way it turned out.
Wow. All right. So 11 hours on the road, which I can't even put myself in that situation of that long. But you get there. Take us through, arriving there.
So along the route down there is where, again, so many things going through my head. That's where the inspiration for the Lucas Foundation first hit me. And at the time didn't know that's what we were going to call it. But so for a brief instant, you're immediately grieving. For a second, you're pissed off. But then that goes to like, okay, I don't want this to happen anymore. What can we do? What do we got to do to stop this from happening? So, Chief Shearbaum probably called me, man, a dozen times on the way down there, checking on me, making sure I'm okay. Where are you at? Is the weather bad? Because there was some storms. He called me later in the afternoon. He said, hey, the Police Foundation has got a hotel for you. They're taking care of it. Everything's taken care of. Don't worry about it. He told me to pull off 75 in Marietta, that there's a McDonald's right there at the exit. So I pull off and pull into the McDonald's, and this was very difficult. There's 2 police cars sitting there waiting for me. One of them is one of his best friends. The other one has his training sergeant or his training officer and another police officer in that car. They're both very upset, hugging me. His good friend, at that point, they would not allow me to drive. They didn't want me driving anymore. So he drove my truck, and they drove us. The 2 police cars bracketed us and took us downtown to the hotel where the police foundation had the room for me. And when I walked in, there was Chief Shearbaum, his whole detail. There was one or two, for sure, Chaplain House. There might have been another chaplain with him. Members of the honor guard were there. There were some other officers, and then there were some detectives. They said, "Hey, we're gonna we're gonna ask you some questions. Let's go upstairs to this conference room that they had set up." And I knew that they had to ask me. I'm not dumb, I knew what was happening. They had to ask me questions. What did I know? Did I know anything? Did I hear anything? And that's what it was. They asked me, did he mention anything? Was he having problems? Was there anything going on at work? And like I told you guys a few minutes ago, it was no. We didn't hear anything. Chief Shearbaum was sitting right next to me, and when the detectives were done, of course they indicated they had his electronics, and they weren't done with his apartment yet. I couldn't go into his apartment yet. We would get all that stuff back when the investigation was done. So they asked me if I had any questions, and I asked about his organs, if his organs were viable to be donated, and they said no. And I asked who had his badge, and I don't think they quite knew who had it, but Chief Shearbaum told me, "Don't worry about it. You're going to get all of that." And that was about it for questions that I had. But then I asked Chief Shearbaum to step out in the hallway, and that's when I told him that the family's going to start this foundation. We don't know what we're going to call it, don't know how it's going to work, if it's going to be successful or not, but we want to try to do something. And he's been on board with us from the minute the words came out of my mouth.
Jared, at what point did you get involved? You mentioned earlier about being involved in bringing Lucas home to Michigan.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I don't recall the exact date. I think it must have been sometime around January 14th. It was a Sunday morning, and I got a call from an old coworker of mine, a guy who'd retired, who was friends with both me and Lucas's uncle, Paul. And he said, "Hey, Jared, Paul's nephew died, and they're escorting the body back from Atlanta to Detroit tonight. Can you help receive him?" And I said, "Paul's nephew?" And it occurred to me at that moment, we're talking about Lucas. And, when you asked the question earlier, was I staying in touch with him? And that's why it sort of makes me feel guilty, honestly, that this period of time had passed. And, I hadn't kept track of him. But it occurred to me at that moment that the body that we were going to be escorting off the plane to the mortuary was Lucas Sizemore, our intern. So we coordinated with the Detroit Metro Airport Police, and we had an honor guard meet and several agents meet the airplane side. Lucas's body came down. It went into the hearse, and there were several federal law enforcement vehicles and some airport police vehicles that took him downriver. I think there was a mortuary in New Haven, and it was just a punch in the stomach at that point. And I think what was really touching about that moment, and I've said this to Brian before, and I think you guys will understand, the people that were escorting Lucas, for the most part, didn't know him. Never met him, but he was a brother in law enforcement, and he got that proper respect that, that any of us would give to one another.
That he should have gotten, that he deserved. Mm-hmm.
Our profession, and you said it, Jared, will understand, because sometimes we're the only ones who understand what that family is. And it doesn't matter how, doesn't matter about the circumstances. Nothing, none of that matters. The time on the job, the amount of time, none of that matters. Someone's fallen, and we're all there to pick up him or her and the family. And in situations like this is when that happens. And I think you just said it the right way. So, but what I want to do real quick is just take a breath for a second, and just, everyone kind of get back to neutral until we get into, I want to get into the Lucas Foundation in a second, but just take a second and thank, our premier sponsor, Goals. Goals.com is a big part of our show. Support us, support law enforcement to the highest degree, and we can't thank them enough for being part of our show. Goals.com, make sure you go there, use the promo code GOLD15, 15% off all your product purchases, as well as on tacticalgear.com. Please do the same there. Support them because they support us. And as always, make sure you check us out on our website, thegoldshieldshow.com, and YouTube, and our audio channels and all that. And thank you all for your support in this show. Can't do it without you. So thank you so much for all that.
I'm going to jump in if you don't mind, Tom. On the ride down, Brian, on this ride down that's filled with a roller coaster of emotions, mostly an intense pain, a pain that as a parent I haven't felt and no one should. You made a decision, a conscious decision, that your family was going to do something to turn this tragedy into helping others.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
I couldn't tell you where I was, like what state that, Dan, there was times, I don't remember who I was speaking to. I think it was my boss asked me where I was, and I didn't know. All I could tell her is that I'm on southbound I-75. I wasn't even sure what state I was in, because the time just, it all melts together, and I'm focused on driving, and I'm just trying to get there. But at some point along that ride, all the emotions are flying around, and then that not give up, fight or flight attitude kicks in, and I'm like, I don't want another mom or dad to feel like this. So what can we do? What can I do? And I'm not any kind of mental health professional or a psychologist or any of that, but I've learned over the past year and a half that I've got a mouth, and if you ask my wife, she'll tell you the same thing. And if I can help one of these recruits, or one officer or two, by standing up and telling our story and telling Lucas's story, I'll do it every single day.
And that needs to get done. That needs to get done. This is it's something that happens far too common. We talk about it all the time on the show whenever this subject comes up. Tom and I don't hide from the fact that we have worked with and been friends with people who have taken their lives, and most of the time we had no idea. Cops are great at hiding it, aren't they?
For lots of reasons.
Yeah, you're right, and Dan's right. Unfortunately, we've been there, not a family member, but dear friends that we've worked with, and so forth. And I think Dan hit it on the head, and I was going to just echo it. The thought of doing that is amazing. I mean, again, we talked about, Lucas having a calling. That's a calling. Someone, helped you out with that decision. Hey, this is what we're going to do from now on, in his memory, to make sure this is talked about and this is covered, because, the numbers are insane. I just looked them up today, and they're they bounce around a lot, but the one number that I found 2 or 3 times, so I was going to go with that number as of October, which is when we're recording this show. There's 59 law enforcement suicides in this country. That's only 10 months. And you know, it's something that's going on, and you know, there's so many avenues out there now than there used to be, but there needs to be more, and a foundation like this is going to help. Like you just said, Brian, you said it, and Dan and I say it every single time we do a show about this. Help one person. One, and it's all worth it.
You know, Tom, I want to mention something about that stat that you just mentioned. So suicide is the leading cause of death for law enforcement. It's far higher than the risk that you face against any bad guy. You're 70% more likely to die by suicide in law enforcement than you are, in line of duty death. But 59, I didn't know that. Brian and I do keep track of annual stats, but that's on low actually. And the unfortunate part is the stats are very inaccurate, right? So that's 59 that we know of, but how many do we not know, right? That were attributed to some other cause. Maybe it was a DUI, maybe it was a car crash, maybe it was an overdose that was described as an overdose. And what about an officer that retires and a week later, or a month later, or a year later, takes her or his life? You know, how's that counted? It's not. So even though that's a low number historically, normally it's 2 to 3 times that by this time in the year. The numbers are not accurate, and we don't know how many there are. And it's a real tragedy. You know, this is a job. It's a noble profession. It's fantastic. It's fun. It's exciting. There's a lot of camaraderie. All those things are fantastic, but it also weighs on you. And especially for those of you who served in uniform. I only did that for a year. I've been federal agent, which by comparison is a much easier job. You don't face a lot of the things that the uniforms do, but all that sort of emotional debris that you have from other people weighs on you. You take that into account, and then you add into it, you know, night shifts and significant overtime and time away from your family, nights and weekends, and chairs empty at the dinner table, you know, and you know, those things have a negative effect on officers' mental health.
Absolutely. It's something that everybody knows about. It's really time. Another thing Tom and I talk about all the time is the whole concept of the stigma associated with police officers asking for help. And that's existed, you know, since probably the first cop swung a nightstick someplace. But at the end of the day, it's a contributing factor towards those numbers. It has to be a wall that needs to be broken. It just like the Berlin Wall comes down, that has to come down. Cops have to understand you are not weak by asking for help. You are human. And the goal of going into any profession should be at the other side of it, you come out of it healthy in every way, and you can live your life. So this loss, this incalculable loss, drove you to form Lucas's Crusade. Tell us about Lucas's Crusade, what it is, what your goal is, your mission, and how people can support it, please.
Well, there's 2 arms of the foundation. We have the normal foundation, which has its own website and everything. The Crusade is kind of like our event arm. Any event that we're going to do where the public's going to be involved will fall under the Crusade. The relay that we had scheduled, we had to postpone. I think we have not picked the new date, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be late spring, maybe May. We haven't got to that point yet, but in either case, the relay was going to be a nationwide Atlanta to Detroit law enforcement relay. And again, not like we were just talking. Of course, I'm not going to lie. Funds are wonderful. You know, the more funds we have, the more things we can do, the more programs we can support. It's more about, like I said at the top of the show, this in your face, awareness driven program. Like I'm not gonna back down from shouting it from the rooftops. This is a problem. This is a bigger problem than the public knows. So I even feel guilty as his dad. Like, if I honestly can't sit here and tell you that if I had known how bad the suicide problem was within law enforcement, if I would have wanted him to do that job, would I have, tried to steer him away into something else? But that's how ignorant is probably not the right choice of words, but the public just does not know how bad it is.
No, you're absolutely right. They don't. And one of the biggest, numbers that we've said on the show before that people don't understand, to put it in perspective, the average person in a lifetime will have 2 or 3 traumatic events happen to them. Dan and I, when we were on the street, that happened in an hour, out of one day, out of an 8-hour tour. Right. We would have 9 in a day, and build that up over and over again. And that's what people don't get and don't realize. And what I would love to see happen is the preparedness that police departments give you on the firing range, driving a car, writing summonses, self-defense, all that is in preparation for what's going to happen to you on the job, and make sure you're taken care of physically on the job. There needs to be a program in place that the mental health starts early, before anything happens, not afterwards.
Tom, I've been fortunate to, Chief Shearbaum allows me periodically, a few times a year, to speak to the recruits at the police academy down there now. And I was just down there a few weeks ago, and we've got seasoned officers, sergeants, deputy chiefs in this auditorium while I'm talking to these recruits, and that exact subject comes up. And I looked over at one of those sergeants and said, in this auditorium in front of everybody, I said, would we have been having this conversation 20 years ago? And they're all like, nope. And I said, would we be having this conversation 5 years ago? And the same response, nope, probably not. So I think it's taking hold with the recruits. I think they are paying attention and they are listening. Maybe it's because of Lucas's age and they see some of themselves in him. Atlanta's got a really strong mental health program. They have a staff dedicated solely to that. But how you convince them, the recruits and the officers, that there's not going to be any ramifications, that it's not going to affect your career, that you're not going to lose your job, they're not going to take your badge and your gun. I don't know the answers to that. People are trying to help with the treatment. I would like personally to see a treatment program designed and built by law enforcement officers themselves. Maybe if they know that program was designed by law enforcement officers, they would be more apt or more easily accessible to it. Maybe they would lean into it a little easier than if it's just a professional coming at you. I'm human just like you guys are. If someone hasn't walked in my shoes, it's hard for me to take criticism or advice from them. And I think they feel the same way, that, that's just this, a second side of the coin, in light of them worried about the ramifications. I think that's the biggest thing. How we get past that, I don't know. But whatever, and again, not pointing fingers at anybody. Nobody. It's nobody's fault. There's nobody to blame. But what is being done isn't working. So let's try something different. Do something crazy. Anything. Let's just try something different and see if that works.
Well, we're going to mention something to you off when we're done with this. This is something we want to talk to you about. Not here. After the show, for sure. That you might be interested in.
So how can the public donate? How can they help your efforts with Lucas's Crusade in this very, very worthwhile endeavor to raising awareness and creating a smoother path for officers who are struggling?
You can, your listeners can go to the official website is Law Enforcement's United Crusade Against Suicide, which spells out his name, .com. And actually, Jared Torrey has been integrating both sites together so they'll look the same and you can access one from each other. The other site is lucascrusade.org. That's the site that will contain the events and information and stuff like that. But from either platform, there's multiple ways listed for your listeners to donate. And if they want to do the old-fashioned way and mail a check, the address of the foundation is on there as well.
Well, we will blast that out endlessly to all our listeners, and followers and everyone in law enforcement, and we have a few.
And so your listeners know too, guys, is currently money that we've collected in donations, we have identified departments or foundations that specifically have or are trying to start mental health treatment and recovery programs, and we have sent money directly to those foundations. One being New York, I'm pretty sure. So New York, Houston, St. Louis, Detroit, Atlanta. We've identified those programs, sent money directly to them. I'm working with some mental health professionals to try to implement a training or a treatment program for law enforcement. And again, how? I'm not the professional. I don't have the answers to that question. The third goal we have is once we have a program like that established, if need be, the smaller departments that can't afford to send their wellness officer to get that training, I would love for our foundation to be in a position to be able to pay for that. But that's down the road. We're not there yet. We're just little right now.
Jared, your role in this whole thing with Lucas's Crusade, your heart's in it. What do you do on a regular basis? How do you add to it?
There's a little bit of a sad story here. Brian and I spent the first 10 months of the last year planning and spreading the word and trying to get registrants and sponsors for a 1,000-mile relay run, which was scheduled to start on September 22nd. And at the very end of July, I got some news that my work was going to be transferring me to Washington, D.C., right at the very peak of our planning process. And we had to take the very difficult decision to postpone because it was just a really Herculean effort for both of us. And I was going to have to just drop it, which was like a punch in the gut. But I want to mention something about that because we are going to resurrect that. It's postponed. It's not canceled. It was going to be a 1,000-mile law enforcement relay run that begins in Atlanta, at Atlanta's new training facility, out the gates and day and night for the next 7 days through Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, and finally finishing in Michigan and Detroit. There's a lot of symbolism there. It was going to be 144 legs, varying different lengths. We had engaged all the police departments and sheriffs and state police and federal agencies along the way. Almost every transition point was going to be at a law enforcement location, so that we could use that as an opportunity for chiefs and sheriffs and other leaders to talk to their people and just stir up the conversation. And so it was really heartbreaking that we had to postpone that. But that was my, I think, principal role over the last nearly a year. And so postponing it was just a terrible letdown, where I felt that I was letting Brian down. I was letting the organization down, the family down. So we're not done, but we had to put that on hiatus. So once we get that back on track, we'd love to re-engage with you guys and see if you could help spread the word again. Because I think we need something like that, some sort of big event that people are like, wow, somebody's running 1,000 miles for what? And, the idea that would stir up, and, conversations, we were hoping to get, bills passed in state houses and maybe even a congressional resolution passed in support of law enforcement mental health, just to really stir up the conversation. So look for that in the future.
Well, we know a couple of people down in Atlanta that are pretty big, that we're going to definitely tap into when it comes to this, who are really big. That we will tap them on the shoulder to get involved in this for sure. That's a no-brainer.
And we will blast this out on our social media and every platform we're on, because we believe in our hearts that this is an incredibly momentous opportunity in time. While there's some traction behind this whole concept of law enforcement, we have to capitalize upon that. We have to keep the discussion going. And Brian, I applaud you for using your voice. And maybe it's a voice you thought you had, but you're finding that you're probably finding you're more eloquent and more committed and more determined than you even thought you could be about anything, right? After the
right.
tragedy you went through.
You're right. It's I don't want to say telling his story gets easier, because there's things that trigger me, and I get really emotional. Like, I had to clean out his apartment and all of them things. And so like I said, saying that it gets easier is probably the wrong terminology, but I'm getting the words out easier. Does that make sense?
Patriot is a premium whiskey hard seltzer. We've carefully crafted 4 flavors that not only taste exceptional, but can be enjoyed on any occasion, anytime. We're committed to giving back 5% of all profits to the core groups we call the backbone of America. We are proud to help those who serve our great country. This is America's Seltzer, the brand that stands for quality, community, and the American spirit.
When it comes to the safety of law enforcement, first responders, and military personnel, every moment counts, especially in the dark. Streamlight provides the reliable, high-performance lighting solutions that these heroes trust in the most dangerous situations, whether it's a car stop, navigating dark alleyways, or exploring abandoned buildings. With Streamlight by their side, our heroes can tackle challenges with confidence, knowing they have the power of advanced lighting technology to guide them. From the first responders on the front lines to the law enforcement officers ensuring our safety, Streamlight is there to make every mission a little easier and much safer. Join us in supporting those who protect us. Visit Streamlight.com to discover how you can be part of the team keeping our heroes safe. Because when they shine, we all shine.
Gentlemen, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story as well as your mission. And you have a mission, and it's one that we support 100%. To our audience, we invite you to learn more about Lucas's Crusade. We'll look for the dates of the 1,000-mile relay run from law enforcement, which is going to be an event. We're going to, Tom, I'm thinking I see a live broadcast somewhere along that route.
It'd be awesome.
Technology today, even we can figure that out.
Yeah. But thank you again so much, Brian, to you, your wife Marie, and your family. We can never say that we will continue to pray for you and for that you have peace at some point with this, because as a believer, I firmly believe that your son is in God's care right now, and he's without pain, he's without suffering, he's without struggle, and he wants you to be the same.
Thank you.
So we will continue to pray for you that way, and Jared, for you as well, that you stay safe in law enforcement for the rest of your career, and that your work that you obviously are so passionate about with Lucas's Crusade continues on and only gets bigger. And we want to be a part of that any way we can, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Guys, don't go anywhere because a couple of things we want to talk to you about. But this is why we do this show. The fun stories, the great stories, the exciting stories that we get, we bless and thank our guests all the time, for coming on and telling those. But in the end, if we're not healthy, then there's no good stories.
You're right.
So first and foremost, everyone's got to be healthy and stay that way physically and more mentally than anything today. And organizations like this and, focuses like this, like Lucas Crusade, is only going to help because, like Dan, you just said, and we talked about it before we hit record, it's got to stay in the face of everyone and it can't go anywhere.
Right. Yep.
And it's just got to be a constant knock on everyone's head about what's going on in law enforcement. And if we can help, like we said, one person, then all this is worth it. This is the time of our show that is fitting right now that we pray for all law enforcement officers, pray for their health, their safety, their well-being, as well as their families, because it's not just a physical go-get-them kind of job. It's just mental as it is physical, and they need our support and prayers. So please say one for them and our military members as well, and our vets out there. Keep them in your prayers and see them on the street and pat them on the back, say hello, say thank you, ask them how their day is going. That means everything to them. Please do that. Once again, Brian Sizemore, Jared Murphy, thank you so very much for being here tonight. And my partner, Dan Murphy, everyone out there, please stay safe. We'll see everybody soon.
Hey, welcome back to the OT, the overtime. Tom, that was an emotional and a difficult show because of the content of the discussion, but not in terms of the people we just had a chance to talk with and their mission and their focus and how great of people they are, right?
It doesn't get easier. We've done dozens of these, and each one, because each one is its own, and each one has another emotional part of it. And hearing 25 years old and not even a year on the job,
unbelievable.
And this happens to this family. You can't fathom that phone call. I mean,
no,
he was telling, and when he said his phone rang, I just kind of put my head down like, oh my God, I can't hear this again, because we've been there, not to that extent, but you know what I mean?
No, we've gotten phone calls. We've gotten the phone call that this person or that person took their life. And I know what that feels like. And you do too. You want to go to your knees. You're like, oh no, especially because you had no idea. And in this case, Lucas Sizemore did not give off any signs. He did not leave any history on his electronic devices. But he was in a bad way and a lot of pain. And he chose to do what he did, which is devastating to everybody around him. But to every tragedy, there's an opportunity, right? I mean, you can let it be a tragedy and sit there, or you can take action. And that's what his courageous family and friends are doing. His father, what a strong, strong man to be thinking of that, even on the ride down to go see and receive your son's body. No, I cannot imagine the pain. I cannot imagine, but he's already thinking of doing for others. This is the kind of people that are out there in this world. This is law enforcement families, not just tough, but selfless.
Yeah. I mean, what's the thought of starting this foundation in the midst of driving down to get him and retrieve his body and not even just do that, but now you're gonna hear everything, which is just as bad. Uh, but you hear it in his voice, and I'm trying to think of the right words that I felt not proud, but I think you know what I mean. It's something that needs to be done, and he's so driven by, yes, it's his son and it's for his son, but he's not only looking at Lucas, he's looking at every other cop out there and
That's right.
father or mother that might go through this, and that is incredible to think about.
I was very happy to hear during the story about the the ride down. The one good thing was the fact that he was met by the officers in Marietta, Georgia. Um, Everyone, the chief on down, treated the loss not like something to be ashamed of, not like it was weakness or something. It treated it like it should be treated, which is the effects of this profession can do profound things to people. And this young man was a victim of that. He was a victim of a career choice that is selfless, that puts you in harm's way, that puts you as a front row witness to incredible suffering and terrible crimes and horrible violence on a regular basis. And you're supposed to be just okay.
Right.
No, I'm glad that they honored his memory, and I'm glad that his father and Jared are honoring his memory as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's hard to not that we're, and I didn't mean it to come off, when Jared said the family and we only understand, I didn't want it to seem like we're above the feeling of others. I didn't want it to come across that way, but like you said, there's this thing that goes off when these things happen. And it's the knowledge of it, and not that we're cold about it, but you're just like, again, okay, what do we need to do? And it's just the next step. And that's kind of what I meant by it. Just, okay, not to put in your rearview mirror, but okay, now we got a mission. Let's go. We got to get this shut down. We got to get this to here. We got to get all these people involved. And it's just a snap thing that goes on with law enforcement when something like this happens, and it just happens too often. And you know what, Dan? Here's the thing that sucks about this. It's not the last show we're gonna do on this.
No, it's not. But as long as I have, air in my lungs and a voice and a microphone, I know you feel the same way. We're going to continue to get the word out and share it. And a couple of things for the benefit of the audience. If you're in law enforcement, or if you're somebody who's close to somebody in law enforcement, understand one thing. The goal of any career in any profession is to come out of it the other end better than you went in, doing good work, but staying healthy. Having a healthy family life, having a healthy personal life, physically healthy, emotionally, those things require tending. They don't just happen. And you're in a job all day long where that's being threatened. Your physical health is being threatened, your emotional health, psychological well-being, all of it gets bombarded with an avalanche of stress and crazy situations. So you have to be strong to fight against that. So physical fitness, of course, is important. Eating right, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's the basics. But things to look for in yourself or in others. This job can change people. Usually happy people can become depressed, unhappy, miserable, cynical, not sleep as good as they used to, not just because of the hours, but because of the things that haunt them. They can go numb, right? They can have all different sorts of relationship problems. They can become angry, easily angered with a hair-thin, razor-thin temper. They can start drinking. They can start doing drugs to dull the pain, to make it go away. There's a lot of things. If you know somebody who's going through this, or if you're feeling these things yourselves, get help. There's so many avenues nowadays, and we talk about them on the show all the time. There are lots of opportunities to get help. Don't be another victim, because there is help.
Right.
There is help.
Yep.
And it's brave, it's courageous, and it's the right thing to do for you, your friends, your family, for everybody around you, to get yourself help. They say on the plane, if you're with a small child and cabin pressure goes down and they drop the masks. They tell you to put your mask on first before you put your child's on, because you're useless to anybody around you unless you're okay.
Right.
Well, that's the same thing in so many things in life, and definitely when it comes to mental health and well-being in the law enforcement profession. You can't serve your community well, you can't serve your family well, you can't serve yourself well unless you're in good shape in
Right.
every way. So think about that.
No doubt, and now's the perfect time to call on an old friend of ours that continues to stay close with us is Copline. They're a incredible organization that is there 24/7, 7 days a week, 365. Copline.org, 1-800-COPLINE. Call that number if you need to talk to someone. They're dear friends of ours, and they are on the ball.
And you're going to
Reach
get a
out to
cop.
them. And you're
You're
going to
going to
get a cop,
who's been trained.
a retired cop.
Right. That's what you're going to get. So you're going to talk to one of your own, somebody who understands it.
Yep,
Not
great
some
point.
person who's a pencil pusher or doesn't have any clue as to what the pressures and stresses are like on you, but somebody who does.
Right.
1-800-COPLINE.
No doubt. With that, let's get some housekeeping things out of the way before we say goodnight. One of the things I want to do, I didn't do before because it just wasn't fitting to do during the show, is our merchandise line. You can get all our merchandise on our website, thegoldshieldshow.com. Go to apparel up in the top of the page. Hit that, it'll bring you right to our site, or go to our incredible designer, Jan Boone, at justaskjan.com, justaskjan.com/goldshields. She does it all for us, and she's the best around. So support her, support us with our brand new merchandise, and thank you for everyone who has bought some already.
Yeah, it's good looking stuff, and she's an awesome person, Jan. She works with organizations that do great work. She gives back. She's not just in it to rip people off. She's making quality stuff for the right reason. And we also want to thank FairlineServices.com, our OT sponsor. The best security services you're going to find, any type of security you need. Give them a call. Look up FairlineServices.com. I think you'll be impressed. I know I have been. Great people. FairlineServices.com.
Yep. So, tough one, but a good one, and a necessary one.
Yes.
Great job, Dan. Poignant question. You were on tonight. You did really well. Not that you're not, but just tonight was one of those nights that messages got through and statements got through, and that's why we do this little show we got.
Yeah, no, you did a great job too. Mutual Admiration Society here, but no, you did. These are tough conversations to the audience, just so you know, even for us. They're tough because in many ways they bring back memories to us,
Right.
Of people and friends that we lost and stuff. But we feel we have an obligation, an
No doubt.
opportunity, and an obligation, right?
And at this time, I've never done it before, but I miss you, Mac. When we talk about one of my best friends on the job. He was my sergeant, my partner, Jim McNamara. Miss you, buddy. But until next time, my friend.
Jimmy, Al, Willie, so many others.
Yep. No
I'll
doubt.
just throw his names out. Those who know, you know.
Yep. Those who know,
Anyway,
you know.
Yeah. All right. Great show. We will see you guys soon, and thank you for listening. We would have nothing on this show without our listeners, and we appreciate you more than you know. Listeners and sponsors. Without it, it's just two knuckleheads with Mike.
That's it. Everyone be safe. Have a great night. We'll see everybody soon.
Thank you.